NASA has a program on their website where anyone can look at the moon. You type in the coordinates, you zoom in, and you can see the surface in pretty good detail. It's called the LRO QuickMap, and it pulls from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, a spacecraft that's been orbiting and photographing the moon since 2009. A theoretical physicist named Maaneli Derakhshani was looking at that tool after an anonymous observer pointed him towards something near the North Pole. He pulled up an area around a crater called Plaskett U, and it was blurry. Nothing there, just gray. Then he found a different NASA source, a higher resolution mosaic published by the actual LRO science team, sitting in their archive. The exact same coordinates, but this was a different image. Two structures standing on the rim of that crater, tall enough to where their shadows stretch a long way across the surface below them. He calculated the height using the sun angle at the time the photo was taken. If you know where the sun was, shadow length gives you height directly. And these were estimated at roughly 95 feet, roughly the height of the Artemis II rocket. And these structures were seen in the archive, but not in the public tool. And around the base of those structures, there was what looked like debris and marks in the surface around them, like something moved them there at some point. And the rest of the crater rim is just normal terrain, and then there's just these two things sitting there with nothing else around them and no apparent way that they got there. Maaneli appeared on Ross Coulthart's reality check in May 2026 and showed all of this on the screen side by side, both from NASA's own data. Before I went too deep into the rabbit hole on this, I wanted to make sure that the moon couldn't just geologically create these structures. But the moon stopped being volcanically active about 3 billion years ago. No tectonic plates. Moonquakes happen, but they're very weak. Nothing like what you would need to push a rock up into a structure. The main thing that's shaping the surface there is micrometeorite bombardment. A slow, constant rain of tiny particles that gradually flattens and smoothens things out. But it doesn't build towers. In February of 2026, the Smithsonian published a global map of tectonic ridges on the moon for the first time. There's more than 1,000 of them, confirming the moon is still very slowly contracting and cracking. But those ridges are low compression wrinkles. The moon shrinking and cracking produces those. It doesn't produce two vertical structures 95 feet tall on a crater rim. And what did Derakhshani say about this? He said it's not like these structures skidded in from somewhere else. There's no series of craters which indicate that it bounced to arrive here. They're just here, sitting here in this otherwise consistent terrain. There's no impact pattern and nothing geological that makes them. They're just there. But that's not the only thing that he found. In a region called Valles Schroetteri on the near side, there's a compact object in the imagery, somewhere between 10 and 25 feet high, with what looks like a track running alongside it. In a crater called De Forest on the far side, there's what appears to be a large hollow in a hillside, a shadowed depression big enough to be a void inside something. He brought all of these to NASA's attention, asked them directly why the public map shows a bunch of blurry nothing where the archive shows structures. And we're still waiting for NASA to respond to those questions, of course. They're probably busy looking for the lost technology that brought us to the moon the first time. But hey, the moon has regions nobody's fully analyzed. Unusual rock formations exist. Volcanic remnants, shadows doing strange things at weird sun angles, all of that is possible. We can't rule any of that out without physically going there. But when you have multiple sites in the same archive, same results, none of it in the public tool, and no response from the institution that owns the data, that's more than just one weird image. In 2018, a paper came out from an astrophysicist at the University of Rochester and the director of NASA's Goddard Institute. They were asking whether a previous civilization on Earth would leave detectable traces. And the answer was probably not. The Earth's geology just erases too much, but the moon is different. There's no atmosphere. Nothing to erode or recycle what lands there. They specifically said in that research that the moon is the best place to look for evidence of a previous advanced civilization because something placed there millions of years ago could still be there now, essentially unchanged. Derakhshani said something at the end of his interview. If scientists outside of NASA can find anomalies in NASA's data, it's hard to believe that NASA hasn't found similar anomalies or possibly the same ones. The LRO has been running since 2009. Hundreds of scientists have worked with that data. A physicist sitting at home, comparing two publicly available NASA resources, found 95-foot structures at the North Pole. The people who do this for a living have seen the same images. The assumption most people make when they look at these structures is that they're alien, they're geological, or they're ancient lost technology, but there could be another option. What if they're recent? There's no international requirement to disclose what you deploy on a lunar surface. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty bans weapons of mass destruction on the moon and technically requires installations to be open to representatives across signatories. China landed on the far side of the moon in 2019, the far side that never faces Earth, so no ground observation is possible from here. Whatever images we would have of what was deployed there would come from China's own cameras or whatever happened to be in orbit above it when that work was being done. So nobody looking up at the moon from Earth can inspect what they've done there because it's not visible, unless you're orbiting the moon. In 2024, China returned samples from the far side. It's the first country ever. Chang'e E7 is heading to the South Pole in 2026. China and Russia are jointly building a lunar research station with 17 partner countries and plans for a nuclear reactor on the surface by 2035. The U.S. established Space Force in 2019 specifically because space became a domain of military competition. Congress has raised concerns repeatedly about classified space programs, both American and foreign, operating outside of normal disclosure frameworks. The same senators that are pushing UAP disclosure flag that the space domain has its own space program problem. So there is a version of this that doesn't require ancient civilizations or extraterrestrials. Someone put something on the moon and didn't tell us. Could be China, could be Russia, could be a classified American program running outside of normal NASA structure. The North Pole is one of the most strategically valuable regions on the moon. Water, ice confirmed there, both the US and China have missions targeting it. It's exactly where you'd want to deploy something if you were trying to establish a strategic foothold before anyone else got there. And the fact that these structures are in the LRO science team's archive but not in the public QuickMap, that's consistent with something deployed after the archive image was captured and before the public tool was updated. Or there's a deliberate gap between what the science team sees and what they want the rest of us to see. And that's the more uncomfortable version of this for me. Not what comes from the stars, but what comes from us, from the programs that we haven't been told about, running on a timeline that we're not aware of. The race back to the moon by multiple countries means that whatever's hiding there could have a very short shelf life. Artemis II already put astronauts in lunar orbit. Artemis III is planning to land people on the surface for the first time since 1972. The Lunar Vertex rover is heading to Reiner Gamma, a region covered in unusual swirling patterns tied to magnetic anomalies that nobody's explained. NASA wants permanent human presence on the moon before the end of the decade. When people are physically standing on the surface with cameras, it gets a lot harder to manage what gets seen. Orbiter images in a database are one thing, astronauts on the surface are another. Coulthard's team flagged a North Pole tower specifically as something that they're pushing into the UAP disclosure conversation. They want this to be included in what's getting put out with the UAP file releases. Whether this gets pushed aside and dismissed and buried like most of this stuff, only time will tell. A physicist found something in images that has no geological explanation and that's not in the public tool that everyone has access to. And nobody from NASA has explained why yet. All of this before 3 different space programs are about to have people or hardware on the surface. Could these structures be our own ancient technology from past civilizations that had a space program and were visiting the moon and it just got abandoned there? Or did aliens build it? Or more likely, probably something from a foreign space program? Whatever it is, there are structures there, and whoever put them there didn't tell us or they're trying to hide it. I've been very interested in the moon since I was a kid. There's a lot of interesting things going on in theories, like it's hollow, it's a satellite, it's an alien mothership. I don't believe any of that, but I do think there's something to it that we've been there in the past, and there's probably been missions that have gone there that we didn't know about, and that's where these anomalies are coming from on the moon. There's too much going on there and too many structures being reported for there to be nothing there. Just a real quick announcement, below this video you might see a strip with some coffee mugs on there. I don't know about you guys, but I love coffee, so that's why I chose those. They have some of my top video titles on there, some of the sayings and some of the things that were referenced in the comments. I'm just trying to get something going to build some community, continue to build and support the channel and see where this thing can go. So if you want to check those out, there should be a little bit of a link below the video here. I'm not sure how that works. This is the first time I'm doing all this, so I guess we'll figure it out as we go. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, like, drop that comment. I'm interested to see what you all think is going on the moon and what these structures could possibly be. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.